welcome to Your Town television program. I'm your host, Paula Joy MacNab, and as always, I've got some fabulous guests today. They entertain me, they educate me, they excite me, they pique my curiosity. I always learn something from them, and my first guest is no exception. I'm delighted to share and welcome to the studio Garland L. Thompson Jr. He has a fascinating story of his life and film and his legacy, and I want to welcome to the program Garland.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you. I'm delighted and privileged to have you in the studio with us today.
Thank you.
We know each other from being on the Monterey County Film Commission together, the board of the Film Commission. And you are frequently jetting off to New York, and I always wondered, where's Garland going? What's Garland doing? And so today we get to find out. So I want to have you tell us a bit about your background. First of all, what you do. So let's start with that.
Well, it's a bunch of things.
Yes, it is.
I'm a poet, I'm an actor, producer, and a director. I currently am executive director of the Frank Silvera Writers Workshop, which is a theater company dedicated to developing new playwrights of color, women, and marginalized groups, and we're installed in Brooklyn, New York.
That's what you're jetting off to New York for all the time.
Yes, that's what I'm always running off to do. So, and what we do is we do a new play reading series once a month. We do new play readings with a moderated critique session following the reading.
So are these new plays, and I'm going to interrupt you as we go along a little bit, which is extremely rude, so I'll apologize right up front.
I'll get used to it.
Is because it's so interesting, and I really want to get the rich depth of what you're saying. So when you're saying a new play reading, so you're saying that anyone who writes a play has a platform to have their play read?
Yes. Yes, that is exactly
correct.
Pretty great. What you do is you would submit the play to us, and we'll read it. If we think it's at a stage where it can benefit from a public exhibition, a public reading of it, and to get some feedback, some more feedback from more than just family and friends on the piece, then we will put it into our rotation. We'll schedule a reading. We do readings once a month down at the Billie Holiday Theater in New York City, in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. And then we will go ahead and have a moderator. We will get a professional director, a professional cast of actors to read the parts and put the reading together. And then we'll have a moderator to come and sit with the playwright and or the director and have a discussion with the audience and anyone else.
So Garland, this sounds like an incredible opportunity for an aspiring writer or even an experienced writer.
Yes, very much so.
That's pretty exciting.
Very much so. It's an open platform to anybody regardless of experience level, and we have had people who have been very experienced, some award winners come and bring us their new work. It's basically been a place for over 40 years where people could feel safe to bring their work. And they can know that the feedback they were going to get would actually be helpful to them, and they weren't going to be judged harshly or negatively. When I say judge harshly, I don't mean like in a negative, like you're bad or this stinks or whatever, but I mean the feedback they would get would be right on point. They would cut no corners in the sense of they wouldn't hold back, but it would never be done in a demeaning way. So, you know, if there was a point, if there was something, a scene someone wrote and there was something some characters did that didn't sit right or whatever, or somebody thought, then we could get right into it. But it's never been about demeaning anybody. It's always been about empowering people.
Well, and you use such a powerful word, which I think is safe. And we as human beings need a safe place and a safe space.
Very true.
So you are creating that in an area that seems like it's very vulnerable, where we're putting our creativity out on the line, and very scary. So what a gift.
Oh yeah. What I often tell people when I moderate the sessions is because we have to kind of give some guidelines to the audience about their feedback, and so we let them know we're not interested in you telling us what you think this character should have said in this place or where they should have gone or what they should have done. If that's the way you feel, then you need to go write your own play and do that with your own characters, right? No, but what we are trying to figure out is how is this making you feel? How is this in general? How is the setup? How does it feel generic? How do these characters feel? Do they feel real to you? Do their situations, what they're dealing with? Exactly. So what I'm fond of telling people is the playwrights that we have here, whether they're experienced and have written 100 plays and been on Broadway, or have written no plays, and this is their first one. They're like new parents. And this new play is their infant, is their new child. And they're coming to us with their new child, this baby, and they're putting it out for us, and they're letting us look at it, and they're interested in our feedback about the baby. But it's also, like any parent, what parent wants somebody else to tell them how to raise their child?
Good point.
No parent wants
Good
that,
point.
right? And
Yeah.
we're no different. Playwrights are no different here. So we're not trying to tell them how to raise their baby.
Right.
But we're trying to give them an idea of how what they're doing is working so far.
Right.
And whether we feel maybe you should explore this direction, or
Right.
maybe you could go down this road,
Right.
or there's a possibility, and maybe the playwright could take that and go, oh, hey, you know, I hadn't thought about that
Yes.
before. But we also do it in such a way, too, where we ask the playwrights to not respond unless they absolutely feel a necessity to respond to some comment. Don't respond. Just write it down.
Oh,
Take it in, take the note,
right.
take the note, take the note. Because what happens is it's very easy for a person to feel like they have to defend their choices right there on the spot.
yes,
When
of
someone
course.
says, you know, I didn't really understand why you had the character of Susan say this to her boyfriend in Act 2. It seems kind of weird. It seems like she should have said something like this instead, right? And so that could be all of a sudden put someone in the mindset of, oh, wow, I have to defend my decision of making
Sure.
that character do what I
Of
made it
course.
do. That's not what we're into. That's not, because that's not how, we don't have the time to debate that.
Right.
You know, so this is a kind of a note gathering, kind of a fact finding session, if you will.
Right.
When
Oh,
you-
it seems incredibly valuable. I
Mhm.
mean, what a gift to the playwright who has the opportunity to be there.
Yes.
So how
Yes.
does, I mean, just to get to the nitty-gritty, because
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
what I do,
Mhm.
how can this be funded and paid for? I mean, it sounds like there's expenses involved.
There are expenses involved. We do, at this point, we do pay our actors just a stipend. We do
Right.
pay a director a stipend for their time and effort, because it does take usually a day. We tend to do this all in one day.
And how many plays do you hear in a day, for example?
We would do one play.
Okay.
So we do one play,
Okay.
one play per reading, so one play per month, one
Okay.
full-length play. And
Got
that
it.
could be a one-act, two-act, but a full-length play. Basically, right now the way it's worked is that I was able to move the company from Harlem, where it had been based for 43 years. I took the company over when my father, who founded the company in 1973 with Morgan Freeman and a couple of other folks, Billy Allen Henderson, the first black performer to ever have a regular network television role in the 1950s on the Phil Silvers show, and radio reporter and personality Clayton Riley. They got together in 1973 and they founded this. And
1973.
and
Wow.
for all those years, they basically they survived off of donations and grants.
Yes.
So it was a constant grind. Dad was always, I would call him at literally 3 in the morning on a regular basis. I'd call him and say, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm trying to get this grant application done and what have you. So he survived on that. So when he passed away in 2014, I took over the company. And we floated for a little under a year or so until we got an offer to be in residence, bring the company to Brooklyn and be in residence at the Billie Holiday Theater at a place called Restoration Plaza in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. And that is also the home of the Bedford-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, which is the first community development corporation to ever be created in the country. 1969, it was founded. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and a number of other heavy hitters from the area, local politicians, black politicians, etc., got together and they created this corporation. And its purpose is to raise the quality of life for residents of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, which has for many, many years, many decades, been racked with terrible poverty
Yes.
and terrible economic circumstances.
Right.
So the corporation was designed to help people with housing, with medical needs, with employment, and also with arts and culture. So they created the Center for Arts and Culture, and in the process they also created the Billie Holiday Theater, which is a 200-plus seat proscenium theater. And they made it as a part of the whole thing. And they created this place called Restoration Plaza, which is an outdoor plaza that has an outdoor performance space, and it's a gathering place. There was also local businesses. There's an Applebee's restaurant. There was a Duane Reade drugstore. So they had all this property, and they also owned apartments and housing. So they really, so the Beveridge-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation is a very important company. The model has since been emulated at least 1,000 times.
Absolutely it has, yes.
And I'm sure you've
yes.
worked and probably known people
yes.
involved with community development corporations.
Absolutely.
So they
very empowering.
Very incredibly empowering. So they realized that arts and culture was a major part of this as well. So that's why they invested and created the Billie Holiday Theater, which went on over the next 4 decades to be a major space and performance venue for artists of color, for theater artists of color, actors, writers, directors, producers. Current Pulitzer, 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner Lynn Nottage, playwright Lynn Nottage, has said in interviews and makes no bones about this that she saw her first play at 12 years old at the Billie Holiday Theater. And as a little girl, she sat there and watched it and went, "That's what I want to do.
I can do that.
I can do that." And now, all these years later, twice she's won the Pulitzer Prize now for drama. So it became a very seminal place. So they continued on. Now, meanwhile, uptown in Harlem, my father was there with the workshop, and they were doing their thing uptown and in Manhattan. But there was a lot of cross-pollination. A lot of folks from Brooklyn went uptown. At that time, my dad's workshop was really the only place that was doing playwright development work like we were doing. So everybody would go up there to that, but then works from the workshop would trickle down to the Billie Holiday Theater and were produced at the Billie Holiday Theater. We had shows that were read in the workshop that ended up going through the Billie Holiday and ended up on Broadway and various other venues off Broadway. A lot of folks made their name there. A lot of folks that you see on television now, the older black actors that you see now.
Give us some names. It's an impressive list.
Samuel Jackson, Denzel Washington, Lawrence Fishburne, Kerry Washington, 11-year-old Kerry Washington. Came and performed in a play that my father produced in New York City, that his workshop was producing uptown in Manhattan. So this whole thing. So there was a lot of DNA for us that we've been sharing for a long time. So the Beveridge-Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation, they hired a new executive director a couple of years ago, Dr. Indira Edwaru. And her husband, I've known her husband for quite a while, and her husband has known my father for quite a while, and in fact, has told me that when he was in college in Kansas City, I believe it was Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, 18 years old and dreaming of being an actor and being in theater, he would get this newsletter from a group called the Black Theater Alliance, which was a kind of a support group for black theaters in New York that had been created at the time. They put out a monthly newsletter that they would mail out. Well, Jerome got this in college, and he read it, and the workshop was one of the companies that he read about. So he read about my dad and my dad's work, and then his drama professor brought in my father's play for the students to perform, for the department to perform. So he got cast as the lead in that play. Had no idea that my father and the work hadn't put the two together. Ended up going to New York, because people said, you got to go to New York. And when he got there, people said, you have to go up to the workshop. You got to go meet this guy. You got to go there, because everybody goes there. So he did. And he realized that, oh my God, the play that I started was written by this guy whose workshop I now come to. So there was a long, long history there, and in fact, Jerome gave the eulogy at my father's funeral, because he's also a minister now. But his wife, I also, every 2 years, I'm trying to get a little complicated, I go down to do, in the odd years, I go to North Carolina, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to do a reading series at the National Black Theater Festival, which is a big, huge festival. About 65,000 people show up to it every year. It's a week-long celebration of black theater in North Carolina. And companies come from all over the country and all over the world to be there. So I do a reading series there. So Jerome had submitted a play, because he's also a playwright. We had accepted his play to our reading series at the festival, so we scheduled him. He was there. He brought his wife and his family. They came to enjoy North Carolina and be there to support him. And so she and I got to meet and talk. And she saw the way I was running the reading series and was very impressed and said, hey, listen, I just got hired as executive director at the Billie Holiday Theater in Brooklyn. I'd love to show you the space. We're doing some cool things. Next time you're in New York, I'd love to give you a tour. I said, great. So we set a time. The next time in New York, I came down to it. I came down. It was funny because I almost canceled the meeting because I literally just done a red eye from California.
Oh, yes.
And had just gotten to the apartment in Harlem. It was 11 o'clock, and I was supposed to be in Brooklyn at 1 p.m., and all I wanted to do was sleep. So
Yes,
I was
yeah,
this close to
but you didn't
canceling.
get to sleep.
I didn't get sleep. I said, no.
No sleeping, Garland.
Nah, sleep is overrated.
That's
Let's go. You know, so I went to the meeting, and it was there that she offered me a residency to bring the company down to Brooklyn. And with that, she offered minimal amount of funding, some small funding. She offered the use of office space and office equipment, email address, and the Billie Holiday Theater, which was, when we moved in, undergoing a $4.1 million renovation. So once the Billie Holiday reopened, we're able to do our readings there, also rehearsal space as well, and there's a gallery also that we could do our readings in when we're not. So offered us all of this.
What an inspiring, incredible opportunity for you and to keep your work going forward.
It was absolutely amazing. I mean, I have to be honest with you, Paula. I was very much, this was 2015 and into 2016, and I was very much dealing with the death of my father. It had been a whirlwind thing, and I had so much, because unfortunately, there were a lot of loose ends when he passed, and I had to come in and basically by myself in the coldest winter in 90 years. I had to deal with all of these things that you have to do when someone passes away, and as well as dealing with the company, and I wanted there to be continuity with the company, so I announced immediately that I was taking it over, so there would be no questions about it. So I was dealing with all of that, but it was very difficult to get excited about anything.
So let's talk about that really quickly, because we've just got a couple minutes left, but you have described an incredible situation where you were raised in a theater world, and you had a father who was somewhat of a legend, if I may, and you're stepping into huge shoes with a lot of challenges. What would you say in the last couple minutes, Garland, what would you want to share with an aspiring young man or young woman, or not so young man or young woman with a dream? What would you like to say?
Well, I would have to say, first of all, it might sound kind of cliched, a lot of people say this, but it is absolutely true. You really do have to believe in yourself. And I say that knowing that this is a daily battle. To this day, I daily battle with believing in myself and believing that I can make something happen. And when I do, things happen. When I don't, things stop. And
I'm going to stop you right there because we're out of time. Garland, it's been amazing. How can people reach you here?
They can reach me through our email address, FSWW for Frank Silvera Writers Workshop, FSWW@restorationplaza.org, all one word. You can also Google us, Frank Silvera Writers Workshop. Google him because he's a fantastic actor, and you'll find out all about us.
Fantastic. Garland, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us. There is such an inspiration in this story. I'm touched, I'm motivated, I'm moved, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you for watching.